My 14-year-old kid spent 3 days making a birthday cake for my brother. The frosting said, "Best uncle ever." Mom threw it straight into the trash and said, "No one's eating pity cake from your kid." My kid's face went blank. Then I stood up, looked at my brother, and said one sentence that left the whole room silent. The frosting was still setting when I drove to my parents' house. 3 layers of chocolate ganache over a crumb coat Levi had chilled for 6 hours. He had leveled each layer with a bench scraper and a spirit level he borrowed from the garage, because Aline Pasco told him that a crooked cake is a lazy cake and Levi does not do lazy. The frosting said "Best Uncle Ever" in white buttercream piped with a number 4 tip in letters, so even they looked machine cut. It took him 9 practice runs on parchment paper before the letters were clean enough. I watched him do the 10th on the actual cake, and his hand did not shake once. He was 14. He had spent 3 days on the cake. 3 days of measuring and sifting and melting chocolate over a double boiler and timing the oven with a stopwatch, because the recipe card said 28 minutes at 325 and Levi does not round. 28 minutes, not 30, not 25. The recipe card was Grandma Maud's. Maud had written it in pencil on a yellow index card with a grease stain in the upper corner from the year she made it for Dolores's 16th birthday, which was 1978, which was the only time Dolores ever tasted the cake from her own mother's hands. Maud wrote the recipe down afterward and put it in a tin box in her kitchen, and it stayed there for 46 years until Levi found it. Levi found it because he was the only person in the family who went through Maud's kitchen after she died. Dolores sent the estate company. Nash took the furniture. Harlan took the tools from the garage. I took Levi. He was 10. He walked through Maud's kitchen, opening drawers and touching wooden spoons and reading labels on spice jars, and when he found the tin box with the recipe cards inside, he sat on Maud's kitchen floor and read every one. There were 43. He chose 6 to keep. The chocolate cake was the first one he picked up. He held it to the light, and he read Maud's handwriting, and he said, "Mom, this is the one." He did not know then that he would spend the next 4 years learning to bake. He did not know that Aline Pasco, the retired pastry chef who lives next door and who ran Pasco's Bakery on Heights Boulevard for 31 years, would teach him meringue and lamination and tempering and the difference between Dutch process and natural cocoa. He did not know that by 14 he would be able to pipe a straight line of buttercream across a 9-inch round at competition speed. He just knew he wanted to make that cake. He made it for Nash's 34th birthday. 3 days of work, Maud's recipe, Aline's technique, his hands, his time, his love. My mother threw it in the trash. We arrived at my parents' house at 2 p.m. on a Saturday in March. The party was in the backyard. Paper plates on the picnic table. A banner that said "Happy Birthday Nash" in green and white because Nash's landscaping company colors are green and white, and everything in Nash's life matches Nash's brand. Britt had brought a cake from a bakery on Shepherd Drive. $400. 3 tiers. Fondant, edible gold leaf. A sugar paste lawnmower on top because Britt thinks personality is a design choice. Levi carried his cake in a cardboard box with handles that Aline had given him from her bakery supply. He was wearing the apron Aline gave him 2 years ago when he piped his first clean border. It says Pasco's in cursive embroidery on the chest. He has worn it for every cake since. The apron has flour in the seams and cocoa in the stitching, and a small burn mark on the left pocket from the time he brushed the oven rack with his forearm and did not flinch, because Aline told him, "A baker who flinches at heat is not a baker." He set the box on the kitchen counter. He opened it. He lifted the cake onto the marble board I had bought for this purpose. A $35 marble slab from the restaurant supply store because Levi said marble keeps the ganache from sweating. He stepped back. He looked at the letters, "Best Uncle Ever." even, clean white on dark chocolate. He looked at me. He did not smile. He did something better. He exhaled. The exhale of a 14-year-old who has finished something and knows it is good. Dolores walked into the kitchen. She looked at the bakery cake on the counter, 3 tiers of fondant with a sugar lawnmower that cost $400, and took someone at a bakery 30 minutes to assemble from a template. She looked at Levi's cake on the marble board, 3 layers of ganache with buttercream letters that took a 14-year-old boy 9 practice runs and 3 days, and a recipe card from a dead grandmother to produce. She looked at Levi in his Pasco's apron with chocolate under his thumbnail and flour in the seams of his sleeves. She looked at me. What is that? It was not a question. It was a dismissal shaped like a question. The way a judge says counsel, approach when what the judge means is I am about to overrule you and I want you closer so I can do it quietly. Levi made a cake for Nash's birthday. There is already a cake. Britt ordered it from Shepherd's Bakery. It cost $400. Levi spent 3 days on this one. 3 days. She said it the way you say 3 days when you mean 3 days wasted. She looked at the cake one more time. Then she picked up the marble board with both hands, one hand on each side, and she walked to the trash can in the corner of the kitchen, the tall stainless steel one with the pedal, and she pressed the pedal with the toe of her sandal and the lid swung open and she tilted the board and the cake slid off the marble in one piece and fell into the trash bag. 3 layers of Maud's chocolate cake. White buttercream letters. Best uncle ever. The letters hit a wet paper plate on the way down, and the V in ever smeared against the plastic bag liner, and the whole thing settled into the can with the sound of weight meeting waste. The pedal released. The lid closed. The kitchen went quiet. No one is eating pity cake from your kid, she said. She set the marble board in the sink. She wiped her hands on a dish towel. She walked back to the yard. Levi's face went blank. Not sad, not angry. Blank, the specific blank of a child whose operating system has just crashed. His hands were at his sides. His apron was still on. There was a smear of ganache on his right thumb that he had not wiped off because he was going to wipe it off after the candles were lit. The candles were not going to be lit on his cake. The cake was in the trash. His grandmother's recipe was in the trash. 3 days of his life were in the trash. And his face did not move. Harlan was leaning against the counter with a beer. He saw the whole thing. He took a sip. He looked at the window above the sink which faces the backyard where Nash was sitting in a lawn chair with his feet up, and he said nothing. Nash walked in 30 seconds later. He saw the bakery cake. He saw Levi standing with the apron and the ganache on his thumb. He did not see the cake in the trash because the lid was closed. He said, "Are we cutting the cake?" He meant Britt's cake. He did not know another cake existed. He did not know his nephew had spent 3 days making him something because Nash does not notice what Levi makes or does or is because Nash has never looked at Levi long enough to see anything other than a quiet kid who does not play sports. I said, "Give me a minute." I walked to the trash can. I pressed the pedal. I looked inside. The cake was upside down. The letters were pressed against a wet paper plate, and the ganache had cracked along the top layer, and one of the letters, the V in ever, had smeared into the frosting. But the cake was intact. 3 layers. Chocolate, Maud's recipe, still whole at the core. I did not take it out. I closed the lid. I stood up. I looked at Nash. If you are watching Family Secret Tales for the first time, welcome. This is not a story about a birthday cake. This is a story about a recipe card, a $15,000 loan, a truck I co-signed, and a family that let a woman throw her own mother's recipe in the trash because the 14-year-old who made it was not loud enough to be worth protecting. I am a court reporter. Harris County District Courts, Houston, Texas. I have worked in courtrooms for 14 years. I sit in a chair beside the judge, and I record every word spoken by every person in the room with a stenotype machine that converts keystrokes to phonetic code at 225 words per minute. I do not miss words. I do not drop syllables. I do not soften testimony. When a witness says something ugly, the record captures the ugly. When a defendant lies, the transcript holds the lie. When a mother says no one is eating pity cake from your kid, the court reporter and me files it in the same place I file everything. The record. Permanent, time-stamped, admissible. I carry a transcript in my head, not of courtrooms, of family dinners, of every word my mother has said about my son in 14 years of meals where he showed up with something he made and left with it untouched. I remember the exact words Dolores used at Thanksgiving 2021 when Levi brought a pumpkin pie he had made from scratch and Dolores said, in front of 8 people, "It is sweet that he tries, but real desserts come from bakeries, not from boys playing in the kitchen." Real desserts. Playing, boys, 3 words that told my son his work was performance, his gender was wrong for the task, and his effort was decoration. I remember Nash at Christmas 2022 when Levi asked if he could make the stuffing and Nash said, "Let the women handle the food, kid come watch the game." Levi does not watch games. Levi does not understand games. Levi understands ratios and temperatures and the difference between sea salt and kosher salt and the way butter behaves at 68 degrees versus 72 degrees. He went to the kitchen and he made the stuffing and nobody at the table mentioned it and nobody thanked him and the bowl came back empty, which means they ate it, which means it was good, which means they knew it was good and chose to say nothing. Subscribe to Family Secret Tales if you have ever watched your child give their best to people who cannot be bothered to taste it. I remember Dolores at Easter 2023 when Levi brought a lemon curd tart with a shortbread crust that Aline called professional grade, and Dolores put it on the counter behind the coffee maker where nobody could see it and served a store-bought cheesecake instead. Levi found the tart untouched at the end of the night. He carried it home in the car without speaking. He left it on the kitchen counter. At midnight, I found him sitting at the table in his apron, eating a slice alone, with the recipe card in front of him. He was rereading Maud's instructions for the curd, not because he needed to, because the handwriting was a hand that did not throw things away. I remember every word. That is what court reporters do. We remember. Levi is not pitiful. Levi is precise. He measures flour by weight, not volume, because Aline taught him that a cup of flour can vary by 30 grams depending on how you scoop it, and 30 grams is the difference between a cake that rises and a cake that sits. He keeps a baking journal. He logs every attempt, every adjustment, every result. He has made 127 entries in 2 years. Entry number 128 was the birthday cake, the one in the trash. Aline told me once, over coffee on her porch while Levi was inside practicing piping, that boy has the hands of a pastry chef and the patience of a surgeon. He does not perform for the table. He performs for the plate. Most bakers never learn that distinction. Levi was born with it. The family does not see a pastry chef. They see a quiet boy in an apron who does not play sports and does not laugh loud enough and does not fill a room the way Nash fills a room. Nash fills rooms. He has a voice that carries across a backyard and a handshake that lasts 3 seconds too long and a laugh that sounds like a commercial for beer. He played varsity baseball in high school. He was homecoming king. He has 2,400 followers on Instagram, and every third post is a shirtless photo in work boots with a caption about the grind. He is the son Dolores displays, the refrigerator son, the one whose photos are at eye level on the fridge door with magnets that say "Proud Mama." Levi's school photo is on the fridge, on the side panel, behind the grocery list, at an angle where you have to open the freezer door to see it. When Levi was 11 and won his first baking competition at the county fair, a junior division blue ribbon for a vanilla bean panna cotta that the judge called startlingly refined for his age, Dolores said, "That is nice, honey. What did Nash place in the softball tournament?" Nash placed third. His trophy was on the mantel by dinner. Levi's blue ribbon was in a drawer. When Levi was 12 and Aline entered his name in the Houston Junior Bakers Showcase, he made a chocolate mousse tart with a hazelnut crust that placed second out of 47 entries. Aline called me from the event and said, "Wynn, get down here. Your son just beat 30-year-olds. I called Dolores to tell her. She said, "That is sweet. Can he bring something for Nash's Super Bowl party?" Something simple. Nothing fancy. Something simple. For a boy who just outscored adults at a juried baking competition, she wanted him to bring chips and dip. When Levi was 13 and asked if he could make Thanksgiving dinner the entire meal because he had been studying Aline's menu planning system and wanted to test his timing across 5 dishes, Dolores said, "Absolutely not. I am not having a child run my kitchen. Britt is bringing the turkey from Honey Baked, and that is final." Britt brought the turkey. It was dry. Levi ate it without comment. He came home and made himself a grilled cheese sandwich and wrote in his journal, "Note to self, brine changes everything. Someday I will brine a whole turkey and nobody will eat Honey Baked again." He writes notes to himself in the margins. He writes notes to Maud. He writes notes to a future version of himself who has his own kitchen and his own restaurant and his own name on the door. Entry 84. The lemon curd broke twice before it set. Maud's card says patience at low heat. She was right. She was always right. Entry 97. Aline says presentation is the promise the plate makes to the person eating it. I want my plates to promise something true. Entry 112. Nash did not try the cheesecake. He said he was full. He had 3 hot dogs. Nash has never tasted anything Levi has made. Not once. Not the panna cotta, not the mousse tart, not the cinnamon rolls, not the lemon curd, not the sourdough bread Levi spent 2 weeks developing a starter for. Nash has been in the same room as Levi's food 40 times, and he has never picked up a fork. That is not an accident. That is a policy. Nash does not eat what Levi makes, because eating would be acknowledging, and acknowledging would be seeing, and seeing is something Nash's side of the family decided long ago they would not do when it came to the quiet boy in the apron. The financial layer underneath the cake is the part Dolores does not talk about and Nash does not acknowledge, and Harlan does not know, because Harlan does not ask questions about money the same way he does not ask questions about anything. I have been co-paying my parents' mortgage for 5 years. $1,100 a month. 60 months. $66,000 total. When Harlan retired from the refinery in 2021, his pension covered about 60% of the monthly. Dolores called me and said, "Your father cannot cover the house on his own. You do well. Help us or we lose the house." I set up the autopay because Maud was still alive, and the house was the house where Maud made the chocolate cake, and I did not want Levi to lose the kitchen where he found the recipe cards. I gave Nash $15,000 2 years ago to start his landscaping business, Alderman Lawn and Land. He said, "I will pay you back in 6 months, maybe 8. 24 months have passed. He has paid back 0. The business earns $74,000 a year. He bought a commercial mower for $9,200. He bought a leaf blower that costs more than my monthly mortgage contribution. He posted a photo of his work truck with the caption Boss Life. He did not mention who funded the first mow. I co-signed Nash's truck lease 8 months ago. A Ford F-250 Super Duty. $48,000. $890 a month. He said his credit was a couple points short. His credit is 540. He has a collections notice from a gym, a charged-off Home Depot card, and an unpaid dental bill from 2022. No lender would touch him alone. Dolores called me the night before the signing and said, "Your brother needs reliable equipment. If the business fails because he does not have a truck, that is on you for not helping." She said on you the way she says everything, like a verdict, like a gavel dropping on a desk I built. I co-signed because I thought the business was real and the repayment was coming and the family was going to hold together the way Maud's recipe cards hold together in the tin box, orderly, preserved, meant to last. Nash made the first 2 payments. Then he stopped. 3 months behind as of the birthday party. The leasing company called me, not Nash, because my name is on the lease and my credit score is the one taking the hit. 31 points so far. I built my credit to 789 over 14 years of perfect payments. Nash's truck is pulling it down the way his entire family has been pulling me down since Harlan retired, and Dolores decided that my paycheck was a family resource. Subscribe to Family Secret Tales because the number underneath the cake is bigger than the frosting. The fourth thing is the one that changed everything. Dolores collects $500 a month from me by Zelle, separate from the mortgage co-payment. She calls it property taxes and maintenance. She set it up in 2021 when Harlan retired and said, "The taxes went up and the gutters need replacing." I did not ask for documentation because she is my mother, and I was raised to trust mothers the way I was raised to trust court transcripts as records of fact. Mothers are not always records of fact. Some mothers are records of performance. I pulled the county assessor records in January after the holiday season bills came in, and something felt wrong. The kind of wrong I feel in a courtroom when testimony does not match the timeline. An inconsistency in the story. A pause where there should not be a pause. My parents' annual property tax is $4,800. That is $400 a month. Dolores charges me $500. The difference, $100 a month. For 5 years. I pulled the bank records. Every $500 Zelle goes to Dolores's checking. Within 72 hours, $400 goes to the county assessor's online portal. $100 transfers to a second account. I called the bank. The second account belongs to Nash Alderman. $100 a month. 60 months. $6,000. Routed from my property tax payment through my mother's checking to my brother's pocket, the same brother who owes me $15,000, the same brother whose truck lease I co-signed, the same brother whose birthday cake my son spent 3 days making from his dead grandmother's recipe, the same brother who walked into the kitchen and said, "Are we cutting the cake?" and meant the $400 fondant, not the 3-layer ganache with best uncle ever piped in buttercream by a boy who can write straighter letters with a piping bag than most adults can write with a pen. I almost stopped there. The thing that stopped me was Levi's baking journal. He had left it open on the kitchen table, the way he does when he is mid-entry and plans to come back. Entry 126 was a cinnamon roll recipe he adapted from Aline's master batch. In the margin he had written, "Grandma Maud would have liked this one." He writes to Maud in the margins. He talks to a dead woman through butter and flour and the careful measurement of yeast. He does not know that his grandmother's recipe card is the only inheritance anyone in this family received that was given with love and not invoiced. I pulled the bank records. The $500 Zelle goes to Dolores's checking every month. Within 72 hours, $400 goes to the county assessor's online portal for property tax. The remaining $100 transfers to a second account. The second account belongs to Nash Alderman. $100 a month for 5 years. $6,000. Routed from my property tax payment through Dolores's account to Nash's checking. The same Nash who owes me $15,000. The same Nash whose truck I co-sign. The same Nash whose birthday cake my son spent 3 days making. The same Nash who walked into the kitchen and asked about Britt's $400 bakery cake and did not notice the chocolate on Levi's thumb or the apron, on Levi's chest or the look on my face as I stood next to a trash can that held 3 days of his nephew's love and 46 years of his grandmother's recipe. I almost drove to Nash's house that night with the bank records and the assessor printout and the calculator that turns $100 a month into $6,000 over 5 years. The thing that stopped me was the recipe card. It was on Levi's nightstand. He keeps it there in a Ziploc bag so the grease stain does not spread, next to his baking journal and a pencil and a small photo of Maud holding a mixing bowl at her kitchen counter. The photo was taken in 2019, 1 year before she died, and Levi is in the background, standing on a step stool, watching her fold chocolate into batter. His face in the photo is the same face he wore when he piped the last letter on the birthday cake. Focus, patience, love, without performance. Dolores was not in the photo. Dolores was not in the kitchen. Dolores was never in the kitchen when Maud baked, because Dolores told Maud, "I do not have time for flour and mess." Maud baked alone for 40 years. Then Levi came. And Maud was not alone anymore. The birthday party was still in the backyard. Nash was opening presents. Britt's bakery cake was on the table, untouched, waiting for candles. The $400 fondant, the edible gold leaf, the sugar paste lawnmower. A cake that said nothing, because it was ordered by a woman who typed the message into a website form and paid with a credit card and never once touched the batter. Levi was sitting on the porch steps, apron still on, ganache still on his thumb. His face was still blank. The blank had not lifted. 14 years old and sitting on concrete stairs, wearing his mentor's apron with the name of a bakery on it that has been closed for 8 years but still matters, because the woman who ran it taught his hands to do something beautiful, and his grandmother before that taught his heart to try. I almost reached into the trash and pulled the cake out right then, in front of everyone, and set it back on the marble board and said nothing. Let the chocolate and the letters and the 3 days of work speak for themselves. The thing that stopped me was Levi's face. It was blank. The blank meant his system had shut down. If I pulled the cake out of the trash in front of him, the blank would crack into something worse. Humiliation, pity, the exact word Dolores had used. He would see his mother pulling his work out of garbage, and he would feel rescued instead of respected. And Levi does not want rescue. He wants a fork. He wants someone to take a bite and say, "This is good." I walked out to the backyard. Nash was holding up a new pair of work gloves Britt had wrapped in green tissue paper. Everyone was watching. Dolores was sitting in a lawn chair with a glass of sweet tea and the specific expression she wears when the version of events is going according to plan. I stood at the edge of the patio. I did not raise my voice. I did not wave my arms. I stood the way I stand in a courtroom when the judge asks me to read back testimony. Still, clear, present, Nash looked at me. Dolores looked at me. Harlan looked at his beer. Britt looked at the cake. 2 of Nash's friends from the softball league were standing near the grill. They looked at me too. I said it flat, one sentence, the way I read back a record. That cake was Grandma Maud's chocolate recipe, the one she taught Levi because you never had time to learn it. The sentence did not land like a bomb. It landed like a verdict. Quiet, final, entered into the record. Not arguable, because there was no fact in it that was not true. Dolores's glass stopped halfway to her mouth. Her fingers tightened on the glass, and the sweet tea rocked, and a drop spilled over the rim and landed on her knee, and she did not wipe it off. Her eyes went wide, and then narrow, and then to a place I have not seen before. A place where a woman realizes that the cake she threw in the trash was the only thing her own mother left behind, and the only person in the family who learned it was the grandson she called pitiful. Nash set the work gloves down on the picnic table. His mouth opened, closed, his jaw shifted sideways the way it does when he is processing something he cannot mow or post or sell. He looked at Levi on the porch steps. He looked at the kitchen window, behind which the trash can sat with the cake inside it. He looked at Dolores, whose glass was suspended and whose knee was wet, and whose eyes were doing something they had never done in front of Nash before. They were looking down. "I did not know he used Mom's recipe," Nash said. "You did not know because you have never once asked Levi what he is making. You have never tasted a single thing he has baked, not once in 4 years. He has made 43 different recipes. He entered competitions. He won a blue ribbon. He placed second at the Houston Showcase against adults. You were not at any of them. You were at softball. And today he made you a cake for your birthday from your grandmother's recipe. And your mother threw it in the trash while you were opening presents from people who like you less than my son does." Nash did not respond. He picked up the work gloves. He set them down again. He picked up his beer. He set it down. His hands did not know where to go because his hands have never had to hold accountability before. His hands hold mowers and leaf blowers and softballs and beer bottles and the steering wheel of a truck I co-signed. They have never held a moment like this. Britt stood up from her chair. She walked into the kitchen. I heard the trash can open. I heard her lift the cake. I heard her set it on the counter. She came back to the patio door and she looked at Nash and said, "You did not tell me about the loan." Then she went inside and she did not come back out. The 2 softball friends had repositioned. Jeff was gone. Dale was standing near the gate with his keys in his hand and the look of a man calculating the fastest exit from a party that has stopped being a party. He left without saying happy birthday. Dolores was in the bathroom. Harlan was on his 3rd beer. Nash was standing alone at the picnic table with a banner that said Happy Birthday Nash in the colors of a brand built on borrowed money, wearing a shirt with a logo designed by a man whose nephew he has never fed. I walked to the porch. I sat next to Levi on the concrete steps. He had not moved. His hand was in the apron pocket where he keeps the small offset spatula Aline gave him for detail work. He was holding it the way another kid would hold a phone, the tool of his trade, the thing his hands know. He smelled like chocolate. His forearms had flour dust in the fine hairs near his wrists. His sneakers had a smear of ganache on the left toe from when the piping bag dripped during the final letter. These are the details I notice because I am a court reporter and court reporters see the evidence that other people miss. The evidence on my son said, this boy worked. This boy cared. This boy stood at a counter for 3 days and did something with his hands that required more patience and precision and love than anyone at this party has shown in 3 years of family dinners. Mom, should I clean up? No, baby. Was the cake okay? Did it look right? The cake was perfect, Levi. The letters were straight. The ganache was smooth. Aline would have put it in the display case. She threw it away. I know. She did not taste it. I know. She did not even read the letters. She read them. She chose not to care. He was quiet for a long time. The sounds of the party continued behind us. Nash's voice, a cooler opening, music from a Bluetooth speaker, the sounds of people celebrating a man who has never once tasted anything my son has made. Then Levi said, Grandma Maud would have tasted it. She would have had 2 slices. She would have read the letters out loud. She would have cried. Do you think she would have been proud? Levi, your grandmother taught you that recipe because you were the only person in this family who sat in her kitchen and asked to learn. She did not teach Dolores. She did not teach Nash. She did not teach me. She taught you. That is not pity. That is inheritance. He almost smiled. The corners of his mouth lifted 1 millimeter and settled back because the muscles were not ready yet. But the lift was there. I saw it. Court reporters see everything. He reached into his jeans pocket, not the apron pocket, and he pulled out the recipe card in its Ziploc bag. He held it in his lap with both hands. Maud's pencil on yellow card. Grease stain from 1978. The instructions for a cake that had just been thrown away by the daughter of the woman who wrote them. I am going to make it again, he said. When? My birthday. For who? For me. That was the moment. Not the sentence I said at the party, not the trash can or the blank face or the frosting letters in the garbage. That was the moment my son decided his work was not for people who throw it away. His work was for himself, and for Maud, and for Aline, and for the people who show up with a fork and an honest appetite and the decency to taste what someone made with their hands before deciding it is not worth the plate. Here is what happened after the party. Not the version Dolores tells, where her daughter overreacted and her grandson is too sensitive. The version where the numbers hit the table and the payments stopped and the family that ran on my transcript went silent because the recorder finally stopped recording and started speaking. I canceled the $1,100 mortgage co-payment the following Monday. 5 years of payments. $66,000 total. 1 click. Confirmation email in 9 seconds. 60 months of automatic withdrawals ended with a button press and a screen that said, "Your scheduled transfer has been canceled." The longest financial relationship of my adult life reduced to 1 sentence on a screen. Shorter than the sentence I said at the party. Shorter than the frosting on the cake. I canceled the $500 monthly Zelle for property taxes, including the $100 that had been flowing through Dolores's account to Nash's checking for 60 months. $6,000 through the pipeline. The pipeline went dry. I called the truck lease company and requested a co-signer release. Nash's income is $74,000 and his business has been operating for 2 years. His debt-to-income ratio qualifies independently. The lender approved the release in 14 days. My name came off the F-250 Super Duty lease on March 28th. I stopped making the $890 payments that Nash had stopped making 3 months before I stopped making them. The difference, when I stopped, the account did not have a backup. I did not ask for the $15,000 back. Not because I forgave it. Because collecting the debt would require a conversation, and the conversation would require Nash to say words like "I am sorry," and "Your son made me a cake from our grandmother's recipe," and "Our mother threw it in the trash and I watched." Nash does not have those words. He has a mower and a truck lease and a banner and 2,400 followers and 0% of Maud's recipe knowledge and 0% of Levi's patience and 0% of the vocabulary required to acknowledge what happened on that porch. The fallout came in layers, each layer a scene, each scene a number. The mortgage payment bounced in April. Dolores called me 6 times in 3 hours. I did not answer. She left 1 voicemail. Wynn, the bank, called. The payment did not go through. I do not understand what happened. Please call me back. She understood. She understood the way a defendant understands when the verdict is read and the courtroom goes quiet and the transcript stops and everyone stands. She understood that the $1, 100 that had arrived on the 1st of every month for 60 months, the money that kept the house where Maud's kitchen used to be and where Levi found the recipe cards and where the chocolate cake was made, had stopped arriving. And the person who stopped it was the same person whose son she called pitiful. Harlan pulled $1,100 from savings for April. He pulled it again for May. By June, the savings balance was too low to cover a 3rd month, and he called Nash. Nash said he would figure something out. Nash figured nothing out. He posted a photo of a fresh mowed lawn with the caption, "Another beautiful day at Alderman Lawn and Land, #BossLife, #The Grind." The caption did not mention the $15,000 he owed his sister, the $6,000 that had been flowing through Dolores's account to his checking, or the cake his mother threw away in front of the boy who spent 3 days making it from a recipe their dead grandmother wrote in pencil on a yellow card. The truck lease payment bounced in April. The leasing company sent a 30-day notice to Nash's address. Nash called Dolores. Dolores called me. I did not answer. The leasing company sent a 60-day notice. Nash called me directly for the first time since the birthday party. Wynn, what is going on with the truck? It is your lease now, your name, your payment. I cannot cover $890 and the mortgage help and the insurance and the business overhead. You earn $74,000 a year. You owe me $15,000 you have not repaid. You have been receiving $100 a month from Mom's account that came from my property tax payment. You had a $400 bakery cake on the table while my son's handmade cake was in the trash. Figure it out, Nash. He hung up. He did not call back. Britt called me once in late April. Her voice was different from Nash's, quieter, not performing. Wynn, I did not know about the money. The loan, the mortgage, the routing through your mom. Nash did not tell me any of it. I found out when the truck notice came and I asked him how we were going to pay, and he said you used to cover it. She paused. I am sorry about the cake. I should have said something. I was sitting right there, and I should have said something, and I did not, and I am sorry. I believed her. Britt is not the villain. Britt is the person who married the villain and lives in the version of events he provides and did not know the foundation was someone else's paycheck until the foundation cracked. Aline knew before I told her. She has lived next door for 6 years. She saw Levi come home from the party with his apron still on and the empty cardboard box in his hands and the blank face that had not lifted, and she knew the way pastry chefs know when a souffle has fallen. You do not need to open the oven. You can hear the silence. She came to my door 40 minutes later with a loaf of focaccia she had baked that morning. Olive oil and rosemary and flaky salt on the crust, still warm. She did not knock. She opened the screen door and set the bread on my counter, and she looked at Levi sitting at the kitchen table with his baking journal closed in, front of him and the recipe card in the Ziploc bag next to his elbow, and the offset spatula on the table beside his hand, and she did not ask. What happened? She said, the cake was for someone who did not deserve it. The next one will be for someone who does. Levi looked at her. He opened the journal, he picked up his pencil, and he started writing entry 129. Aline stood at the counter and watched him write. She did not read over his shoulder. She did not ask what he was writing. She stood the way a teacher stands when a student is working through something that matters more than any assignment she could give. Present, quiet, available, and completely still. After 3 minutes, she tore a piece of the focaccia and set it on a napkin in front of him. Levi picked it up without looking away from the journal. He took a bite. He chewed. He swallowed. He kept writing. That was Aline. 1 loaf. 1 sentence. The door always open. She has given my son more in 6 years of Saturday mornings and piping, lessons and honest criticism of underbaked crusts than his grandmother, has given him in 14 years of holidays where his blue ribbon went in, a drawer, and his lemon tart went behind the coffee maker, and his birthday. Cake went in the trash. Here's the part that stays after the payments stop and the truck is gone and the Mother's Day card sits unopened in a kitchen drawer. Dolores has not spoken to Levi since the birthday party, not called, not texted, not come to the house. She has driven past our street twice, according to the Ring camera, but she did not stop. She slowed at the corner and then accelerated, and the sedan disappeared down Heights Boulevard the way a sentence disappears from a transcript when the judge strikes it from the record. Gone, but the court reporter remembers. The court reporter always remembers. On Mother's Day, a card arrived. No return address. Inside, in Dolores's handwriting, 5 words, I miss my grandson. She did not specify which grandson. She did not write an apology. She did not mention the cake, the trash can, the recipe, Maud, the $66,000, the $15,000, the $6,000 pipeline, or the word pity. She wrote 5 words and sealed them and mailed them to a house she has not entered since March. The card sits in my kitchen drawer next to the county assessor printout that shows the $100 a month discrepancy. 2 documents from Dolores. One is a sentiment. One is evidence. Both tell the truth about who she is, but only one of them she meant to send. Nash's truck was repossessed in June. The F-250 Super Duty, $48,000 vehicle. He could not cover $890 a month, plus insurance, plus gas on $74,000 a year, when the $74,000 also had to cover the $15,000 he owed me, and the mortgage help Harlan started requesting, and the business expenses he used to offset with my co-signed credit. The repo driver came at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. A neighbor named Mr. Fontaine was walking his dog and stopped at the end of Nash's driveway and watched the flatbed operator hook the F-250 and winch it backward. Nash came out in his Alderman Lawn and Land t-shirt, the one with the green and white logo, and he stood in the driveway and watched. He did not shout. He did not chase the truck. He watched it go the way Levi watched the cake go into the trash. Except Levi's face was blank because his heart was broken. Nash's face was tight because his cash flow was broken. The difference between those two blank faces is the difference between a boy who lost something he made with love and a man who lost something he acquired with someone else's signature. Nash posted nothing on Instagram that week. The account that had shown the truck 14 times, always low angle, always sunset, always captioned with boss life, or built different, or the grind never stops, went silent. The grind stopped. The grind was always my credit. Harlan called me once, in July. He did not ask about the money. He did not mention the mortgage or the Zelle pipeline or the truck. He said, Levi's birthday is in August. What does he want? I said, he wants someone in this family to eat something he made. Harlan was quiet for 9 seconds. I counted them the way I count pauses in testimony. 9 seconds is a long pause. In a courtroom, 9 seconds of silence after a question means the witness is deciding between the truth and the version. Harlan said, I will be there. He has not confirmed since. I do not know if he will come. But he asked. And asking is the first thing anyone in the Alderman family besides me and Aline has done for Levi since he was 10 years old and sat on mods. Kitchen floor with flour on his fingers and recipe cards in his lap, and the specific look of a child who has found the one place in the world where someone sees him. A Saturday morning in August, Levi's 15th birthday. Our kitchen. Not my parents' kitchen, not Nash's backyard. Ours, Levi is at the counter. Apron on, journal open. Maud's recipe card in the Ziploc bag propped against the backsplash where he can read it while he works. He is making a cake. Not for Nash, not for Dolores, for himself. For the first time in 4 years, the cake is for the person who made it. Chocolate, 3 layers. Ganache, white buttercream letters. The letters say, made by Levi. Not best uncle ever. Not happy birthday for someone else. His name. His work. His declaration that the hands covered in cocoa, and the apron with the burn mark, and the journal with 129 entries, and the recipe card from a grandmother who taught him the only thing worth inheriting in this family are enough. They are more than enough. They are the whole plate. Aline arrives at 10 a.m. with a box of candles and a card that says, to the best baker on the block. Keep measuring. She sets it on the counter and she watches him pipe the last letter, and she does not say anything because Aline knows that silence from a teacher is the highest form of approval. I stand in the kitchen doorway with coffee. The morning light comes through the window above the sink, and it hits the marble board and the ganache and the white letters and the recipe card propped against the backsplash. Maud's handwriting, pencil on yellow card. A grease stain from 1978 when a mother made a cake for a daughter who did not have time to learn the recipe, and a grandson who did. Levi sets the piping bag down. He steps back. He looks at the cake. He looks at me. He does not exhale this time. He smiles. The full one. The one that uses his whole face. It is good. he says. It is. It is good the way Maud's cake was good, not because it is perfect, because it was made by someone who cared enough to measure and to wait and to get the letters right and to trust the recipe and to stand at the counter for 3 days with flour in his seams and love in his hands. It is good.